שלום ילדים, ברוכים הבאים. אני רוצה לעבור על השיעור האחרון שלמדנו בכיתה ולהתכונן לשיעור הבא. I want to review the last lesson and get ready for the next one. So quickly, we learned on what was happening to the Jewish people outside of Eretz Israel. So we learned about the Ottoman Empire, which you see here. The Ottoman Empire and Eretz Israel, it was called Palestine at the time, was like in a little remote corner of this huge empire. It was neglected, nothing was really done over there. There were very few Jews there. So that's the Ottoman Empire. Then we move to Eastern Europe, Mizrach Europa, ha-antisemiyut, ha-pogromim, אלכסנדר השני. ופגשנו את תחום המושב, the pale of settlements where most of the Jews lived, ואחר כך עברנו למערב אירופה. We then moved to Western Europe, and this is where we met emancipation on the one hand, the Dreyfus trial on the other hand. So we saw what was happening at the Ottoman Empire. We saw what was happening in Eastern Europe, anti-Semitism, pogroms. We saw what was happening in Western Europe, emancipation, and yet another type of anti-Semitism. Then we move on, and we met what was happening in the southern part of Russia. Let me go back to the map. This is the little corner. It's the Crimea. There was a city here of Odessa, and there were many Jewish thinkers who left this area and moved to the city of Odessa. And last time we met one of those thinkers. If you remember, his name is Leon Pinsker, Chovevei Tzion, The Lovers of Zion, and his famous book, Auto-Emancipation, Auto-Emancipatia, Shichrur Atzmi, Self-Freedom, Self-Liberation. Interesting to note that while Pinsker was looking for Jews to redefine themselves, at the same time, he himself did not put his name on his book because of fear of anti-Semitism. Now we went into Eretz Israel. So we spoke about the state of the Jews, the condition of the Jews, the shape of the Jewish communities in Europe, in the Ottoman Empire. But what about the Jews in Eretz Israel? And that's what we studied last time. And I said that there were 4 cities known as 4 holy cities. In the south, there was Hebron and Yerushalayim. Hebron and Jerusalem. Hebron is a very special city. When King David became king, that's where he made his capital city. So Hebron is the first capital city of Israel. Then he moved to Jerusalem when he conquered the water sources. We then moved to Tveria and Tzfat in the north. And we spoke about these being very special cities. A man by the name of Maimonides, surely you have heard of him, is buried in the Jewish cemetery in Tveria, Tiberias, on the shore of the Kinneret, and then the city of Tzfat. Tzfat is a mystical, it's a spiritual city. People would go out, it's in the mountains in the north. People would walk out to the mountain edges on Friday night and watch the sunset and welcome the Shabbat, and that is where a poem, a famous poem, was composed, the poem Lecha Dodi. You may remember it. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela, and so on. These Jews in these 4 cities, first of all, were very few in number. We're talking about 25,000, maybe 40,000 Jews. They didn't have what to eat. They earned their living by studying Torah. They came to Israel to be more Jewish, to be more spiritual, and they studied Torah and they studied Talmud, and they would be paid by the Talmud Academy called a kollel. They would be paid there, and money would be raised from Jews outside of Israel. V'chilku et hakesef laYehudim shegaru ba'aretz. They distributed, they gave out the money to the Jewish people who lived in Israel, sheyeh lahem mima lichyot, so they should have what to live from, because this was their livelihood. Lachen karu laparnasa zu hachaluka. They called this way of earning the living chaluka, the distribution. Money was distributed, was given out to Jews who lived in these 4 cities. Now, when Jews were coming from the Pale of Settlements from Russia and Poland, when Jews were coming from these 2 towns, then the monies, when the Jews were coming when the Jews were coming from the Pale of Settlements and from Russia and Poland, from these 2 countries, they came to Israel, but they came to want to be farmers. They came to make a special bond, a relationship, feeling part of the land. They were very different from the old settlement that stayed in the yeshiva and studied Talmud. The old settlement was called Hayishuv Hayashan, and the new settlement was called Hayishuv Hechadash. The new settlement. There was conflict. The new settlement were a bunch of strong people who came to farm, to work the land, and they looked upon these Jews that were there just doing nothing all day, just studying. They looked upon them as lazy people, and they looked down upon them. So there was a conflict between the old and the new. Hayishuv Hayashan, Hayishuv Hachadash. The new people that came to live in the Yishuv Hachadash, in the new settlements, they were called Ha'aliyah Harishona. They were called the first Aliyah. At that time they just came. But over the years, these waves of immigration were called the first Aliyah, the second Aliyah, the third Aliyah. We're now doing the first one. There were many more. There were 6 or 7 Aliyot. Kanu Adamot, they bought land and they made new settlements. Yishuvim Chadashim Ba'aretz. These new settlements were generally created on empty fields. It's not like they took the land from somebody, from the Arabs that lived there. They bought empty fields and they worked hard. There were no tractors. There were no cranes. They had to take rocks and clear the land with their own hands. They had to take out the trees. They had to plow the field with an ox or a mule or a horse. And sometimes, if there was not enough water that year, all the effort was for nothing. They bought these lands from Arabs. They built new villages, and they were making new Jewish life in these new settlements. And here we have the old settlements, Tzfat, in the Ari synagogue, and this is existing today. It's a beautiful, beautiful spiritual place. This is Tveria, you could see here overlooking the Sea of Galilee, Yam Kinneret. So this is how the first Aliyah and the new settlements began. We will continue with that at our next lesson. See you on Thursday. Thank you for listening.